Phantom 3 Professional was released in 2015 and cost more than $1,200. Since then it has dropped in price and become a popular mid-level drone for many businessmen, creators, and simple hobbyists. I got mine used about 6 months ago, and I've been putting this video off now for far too long. Now that I have plenty of personal experiences with it though, I decided it would be a perfect time to create a little review and walkthrough of what the drone is and what it can do. This video is going to get pretty long, so I also added timestamps in the description. If you want, you can go down there, click those to skip to the important parts that you care about to bypass all the other parts that you don't. The first part is an entire breakdown of every spec this drone has to offer. It's going to be pretty in-depth and get kind of nerdy, so if you don't care or don't understand any of it, just go ahead and skip to the next part and bypass this for now. But diving into those now, let's go take a look at what kind of specs this drone has to offer. So diving into the Phantom 3 Professional here, it was released April of 2015, costing $1,259. Since then it has dropped down to about $750, while each battery runs about $105 each. It weighs 2.8 pounds with the battery and props included. It can fly at 35 miles an hour horizontally, 11 miles an hour vertically, and 7 miles an hour while descending. Their operating time says 23 minutes max flight time. I would say that's maybe a tiny bit over exaggerated. I don't know if I've ever gotten anything over 20 minutes, so I would say about 13 to 20 minutes maybe. Their operating temperature says 32 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. I have flown it in over 104 degrees and it doesn't really give any problems at all. I've only had one warning where it says that it's overheating and it'll automatically slow itself down. Never had any problem beyond that, nor have I ever flown it below freezing. The Phantom 3 Professional uses downward vision positioning system as well, using the 2 sonar sensors on the bottom. That would be its obstacle avoidance system. If you ever did hover over something, it would let you know that something's there. It also has a GPS hover mode, which uses the satellites in outer space to pinpoint its accuracy and remain hovering when not in use, which is actually pretty accurate and cool as well. It also features a 3-axis gimbal which controls pitch, roll, and yaw. Speaking of the gimbal and camera, it's a 1x2.3-inch CMOS sensor utilizing 12.4 million pixels. It has a 94-degree viewing angle, which is a little bit more narrow than a traditional GoPro or action camera, which you might be familiar with. It's a 20mm lens, which equals about 35mm after the crop factor has been applied. Fits focus at infinity as well. The ISO ranges from 100 to 3200 for video, and then 100 to 1600 for photos. It uses an electronic shutter from 8 seconds to 8,000th of a second, and the 8 seconds is actually pretty accurate as well. It does hover well enough so that it can do long exposures from the sky without getting much blur as well. So I actually was really impressed with the full shutter range on that. And then obviously 8,000th of a second is usually plenty as well. It does shoot in RAW, it shoots JPEG and DNG at 4,000 by 3,000 pixels as well. Looking at the video side of things, it does 4K at 24, 25, and 30 frames a second, and then 1080 up to 60 frames a second. It shoots in MP4 and MOV in H.264 codec. It also takes a micro SD card right on the side, maximum of 64 gigabytes though, so you cannot use your 128 gig SD card on this one. But it does still have to be Class 10 or UHS-1 rating or higher. The battery on the Phantom 3 Professional uses a 4,480 mAh lithium-ion battery, which charges through the 2 copper prongs on the side of it, and it takes about an hour to charge from a dead battery to a completely full one. So the controller, it has a 1-mile video transmission signal on it. It connects to your device via the USB port on top, and it also uses the DJI GO app as well, which I will get into later. It streams 720 video at 30 frames a second to your device, which is usually plenty clear to view what the drone is viewing and use it quite easily. It requires iOS 8.0 or newer, or Android 4.1.2 or newer. The controller also does charge as well. It has a port on the side right over here. This opens, and that's where your charger would go. It does use the same charger that the batteries use as well. And then there are a whole bunch of buttons on here. You have your power button and your return to home button, or 2 on the front. To turn it on, you would press and hold, and the lights would blink and it would make the sound, and that's on. And then same thing, turn it off, press and hold, and it would turn down. Other than that, you have a couple buttons on the back here. You have your 2 antennas, which are foldable and directional. You have a record button here to automatically start recording whenever you're doing. You have your mode switch here to drop between auto, attitude, and function mode. And then you have a wheel here which controls the up and down pitch of the camera. And then on the other side, you have a couple more buttons. You have an automatic playback button to review the files that you're using right now. This button is also programmable. I'm not sure what mine's set at right now. I never really use it. And then this is your exposure compensation wheel to automatically adjust your exposure if it is too bright or too dark like that. On the back, you also have a couple more buttons as well. 2 buttons, C1 and C2. You can program those in the app, which I will show you later. I have mine set up to where my C1 will automatically open the apps to see where I am in relation to myself. and then my C2 will automatically change the pitch of the camera to up or completely down. Other than that, there's not much on there. Like I said, there's 2 ports on the front, the charging port on the back, and the buttons here. This folds up and is adjustable to whichever device you're using, just like that. These pop out for your phone. There's a whole bunch of different kind of cool features that you can do with this as well. But other than that, it's a really nice controller and really easy to use as well. And it has plenty of functions for me, and I've never really found a problem with it. The propellers on a drone are probably overlooked by many people, but still obviously a necessity to fly. So the Phantom 3 Professional does use 2 different kinds of propellers. Some have a black tip, others have a silver tip. The black ones are reverse threaded, meaning they unscrew to the right and screw on to the left. That's really the only complication or thing to know about the propellers. I've never really had a problem with mine, and I don't really see a reason to dive into that much further. But looking at the drone itself here, there's not much else to really go over. You have your battery on the back, which pulls out via those 2 prongs right there. You have your SD card reader. If you wanted to extract the files via micro USB, you can plug it into there. Your actual SD card goes in right over here. Your gimbal's on the bottom there. It comes with this little lock thing to keep it in place. That's just what that is. You take that off before you fly it, obviously. There's a micro USB port on the front, and then you have these there's a light and a button on this side over here. One of them's a button, one's a light. You push that button to link the remote controller, which I will get into in the app walkthrough, which brings us perfectly to that part of the video. So next is the full app walkthrough to show you what it's like to dive into the app and use this thing and really get all the functions out of it. So let's go into that and break it down from that viewpoint now. So when using the DJI GO app, it'll probably open something similar just like this. You want to scroll under here, Phantom 3 Professional, select that there, and then you should be good to go to slap this on your controller. So pop those little prongs out, push that down, and you should be clamped on there. You're good there. And then you're ready to turn on the drone. Make sure first of all, make sure your controller is connected via the cable in the back, obviously. Then press once, press and hold again. The gimbal will dance around, and then it'll make a noise. And that one's ready, and then controller is next. So press once, press and hold. Beep, you're good there. And then your camera, you can press that. It'll probably spawn in upside down. Flip that around. So once you open the app, it'll probably open up to something just like this. You have your screen here on the front, which is controlled by your gimbal, which the control for my gimbal is my back finger. Back here, there's a scroll button that I showed you earlier. That's where I'm controlling the gimbal from. You have a whole bunch of buttons. You have a map, and then there's a whole bunch of buttons up and around the screen, as well as your video transmission right in the center. All of this is kind of programmable. You have your warning screen, which will pop up over here as you keep seeing. Right now, it's telling me that there's a strong wireless interference, which means I'm probably in a house. Go figure. But that's also where your warnings will be. If you're in like a no-fly zone, something like that, it'll let you know. So we'll take a little tour here around. So all the buttons here, starting with your map down here, I program my back button. There's a button back here. I program that to open my map so that on the fly I can just press that and be taken right to my map. This will show you all the local no-fly zones or anything around you if you're okay or where you are in satellite view and everything like that. That's kind of cool to have. I like having that on a quick reference just like that. So that's kind of cool. If you don't have cellular hooked up, that'll just become a circle with you and corresponding to where the drone is. But since I'm on cellular, actually on Wi-Fi right now, that'll pop up with the full satellite map of where you are. Now looking up here, you have 2 buttons here. The bottom one's your return to home. You'd press that if you're out somewhere far away and your controller disconnects. You can press that on your phone and return to home automatically. Your controller also has that button, which was this button right here. It looks exactly the same. This button would be if your phone disconnects, you can press that. So kind of 2 fail-safes there. If the phone disconnects, press the controller. If the controller disconnects, press the phone. Top one is an automatic takeoff, which you can do that if you want. I don't really like automatic takeoff. I'd prefer to do it myself. But you can if you want. You can slide that and it'll take off right here on my table. But next up, you have there's a DJI menu. If you ever did want to go back to this screen, you can press that one. I don't know if you care to know about that. Let me go back to, come on, full screen, bingo. Let it load again. And then once this goes, so you can click this ready to go GPS. Sometimes that'll say either ADDI, if I can flip it over to that. No positioning, that means I took off GPS mode, which is a little bit more risky, not as confident, I guess. I don't really like doing it. I prefer to leave it in GPS. Or sometimes if you have a bad image transmission signal, that might say like weak image transmission signal, something like that. But that's also a menu as well, so you can click that. It'll give you a whole bunch of stats here once it focuses there. So overall status gives you a bunch of quick reference kind of stuff. You can calibrate the compass, which you might have to do every once in a while. You can calibrate that. You spin in a circle and hold it, and it calibrates the compass to where you are locally. I'm going to tell you your remote control, how good your signal is, about your battery information as well, some quick reference stuff like I said, as well as your gimbal and SD card as well. Next over, you have this little wording right there. Mine says P-GPS. That would be the mode that I was talking about. I like to leave it in GPS. That's what I'm talking about. That means like other options, like you have this F for function if I wanted to do certain functions. Notice how this little button popped up right there, goes away, pops up. Those would be your functions. So you can open up that. It's going to tell you all this stuff. There's your 5 different functions that you can use between point of interest, waypoint, follow me, home lock, and course lock. Each of those has their own separate mode, and that'd be a whole nother video, honestly. Those get pretty complicated, but they are kind of cool once you dive into them as well. So I prefer leaving it. First of all, there's a little switch here. This is what I'm controlling. I'm pushing this each way. I like to leave that all the way right, which is just on regular auto mode. That seems to be the best for me, and that's what it'll pop up as up there, P-GPS. Next is your satellite connection right there. You can see on this one it says 10 with a little satellite signal. That means that I'm connected to 10 satellites in outer space right now, which would be locking down my position and holding it steady where it is. Next is your remote controller signal, which mine appears to be a full connection once it focuses. You can kind of see it up there. And the next one is your HD signal. That's your transmission signal. So the controller one is how well your controller is connected to your drone. That image transmission signal is how well your phone is connected to your drone technically, on how clear of a picture that is. So once you get further away, that little bars up there will start diminishing, and that's how you know that you're starting to get to the end of it. Next to that, you have your battery, which right now it says 78%, which that's totally fine. That obviously goes down as we're sitting here. It'll go down pretty quick, and obviously even quicker once you're flying. Next, you have these 3 little dots. That's a whole nother menu as well. So you can open up that. It'll open up each setting for each specific part of the drone. First one is your general settings of the drone itself. Your return to home settings. You have multiple flight modes like I was talking about. Your return to home is very important. You want to leave that before you ever go flying. Make sure that your return to home altitude is higher than anything you're flying around. Meaning that this is what would be, if you did press those return to home button either on the side that was over there or on the controller, it would go to this altitude and then come back home. So you want this to be higher than any kind of obstacle in your way. So it is measured in meters, which you can't change, of course. So I have mine set to 100 meters, which is over 330 feet. So that's usually higher than anything I'm around. So if I ever disconnected like that, it would return to 100 meters up and then fly towards me. So that's usually pretty safe for me. But if you're in like an urban environment, you might want that pretty high. If you're not, you can lower that all the way to 20 meters. But that's really important as well. Beginner mode, I've never really used it that much. I don't really care. I trust people. I trust myself. Max flight altitude, again, kind of limit yourself a little bit. I prefer to have that maxed out. I know you're not supposed to do that high. FAA doesn't allow it that high. But if I want to go that high, I want to be able to. So that's why I have that one maxed out. Same with max distance. You can enable a max distance. I prefer not to. You have more advanced settings in here as well, which you can really tune sort of bit. You can change how fast your rudder goes up and down, how you yaw left and right, forward, everything like that. You can change how fast each of those accelerates. I never really care about that. Auto works fine for me. Sensitivity as well. I have changed the brake a little bit and the altitude, meaning that 100%. So if I press up, it'll give it full power up, and then brake and movement, I don't really care about those. Same kind of sensors and stuff. You can program each sensor if you really want to. This gets pretty high tech, and I don't really care about that. It works fine the way I like it. And there's your return to home signal. So this would be another important thing. If you're using it maybe not at a set return home place, maybe like on a boat or something in the ocean, your return to home is always moving. You want to change maybe this one says remote controller signal lost. So if the signal gets lost on the remote controller, I have mine set to automatic return to home, but you can change that to an automatic land or a hover as well, which is kind of cool. So I like mine coming back to home, but if you are, like I said, if your return to home is moving, if your home is moving, you probably want that to either hover so that you can go within range again, or land. But like I said, if you're over in the ocean, you might not want it to land. But if you're on a safe environment, whatever, you know that you can be confident with that, go ahead and switch it to land. I like to leave it at return to home. There's your another positioning system, return to home, and then front LEDs. If you want, you can turn those off. It'll change the red ones up there on the front. I don't really care. I like to leave them on. And then you can do some more flight data modes there. So that's just in the drone settings. Next is your remote controller settings. This is how you would program those 2 buttons on the back that I'm talking about, that were right here and over here underneath that. We can change both of those there. Like I said, I like to have one for the map view and one for the gimbal up and down. And then linking remote controller, this is one of the more important parts. I'll cover this later also in the troubleshooting thing, but linking remote controller is very important. If it ever gets disconnected, or maybe the first time once you start flying it, you might want to change that. You want to press this. So press that once, and then this thing's going to start beeping. So once I do this, I have to kind of hurry. But this is going to start beeping. It's going to count down from 60. While I'm doing that, this is going to start beeping and flashing and everything, and that's when this button comes into play. That was right over here. You want to press that button in, and that's how they would link, which, like I said, is important for tuning or troubleshooting, I mean. Sorry about that. So let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and press this. Come on. So let's see. So I press that. It's going to start beeping, like I said. Flip over to your drone. You want to grab like a toothpick, something small like this. And then, like I said, there's a little tiny button right down here. You want to press that once, let go, and there. See how that says linked again? Let it focus. Remote controller link, that's all you have to do. And this is a great way for troubleshooting. If it's a bad transmission signal or if something doesn't work right with the controller or with your app, that's usually the best way to fix it right there. So that was under settings up here, controller settings, and then at the bottom of controller settings was linking your remote controller. You press that, it beeps, and then you want to press that little side button, which is the right one on this. That's usually the best troubleshooting advice that I usually end up doing. So remember that if you don't take anything else away. Next you have your HD, which is your transmission settings, which you can manually program which channel you'd like to be on if you care. Most of the time auto does fine. This is like if there's bad interference or something with different gigahertz of channels. You can change that if you'd like. Auto works fine for me. Next is your battery information. Again, it's kind of just for your knowledge and it can't really change as much. One thing that is important to change, probably your critically low battery and your low battery warning. I think those come standard pretty high, and I prefer mine at 30% for the low battery. So once it hits 30%, it'll start beeping, and then at critically low battery is 10%, and at that point, it'll automatically return to home for me. So some people like them really high so that they have a nice awareness of where they are and how much time they have left. I don't really care. 30-10 works for me. You can change that how you like. Like I said, this also is your battery information, so you can access how much capacity it has, how many times it's been charged. If it's overheating, something like that, you can check that as well. Mine seem to be doing fine the way they are. I think there are some advanced settings in here, I'm not even sure. Voltage on main screen. Oh, this is another kind of important one. You have time till discharge set to 6 days. This would be, since they're lithium-ion batteries, they're not meant to be a full charge 24/7. So I have mine set to after 6 days. If it's a full charge at 6 days, it'll automatically discharge down to about 60%, just to keep it safe while being stored. I think you can change that all the way up to 10 days or 5 days if you care. If not, you can turn it off, I think. So that's kind of cool, I guess. I think that covered pretty much all the settings on that menu. So next in the menu, you have a couple different menus up here at the top. You have some settings here, which are the photo settings actually. See ISO, shutter, EV, and white balance. Those are all changeable as well. Mine's probably set to auto right now, but you can change that as well. So first of all, if you want to do it in a video, there's a little toggle button right there to switch between video and photo. Video will give you a wider picture, 16:9, while photo is the 4000 by 3000 pixels. But to change this stuff up here would be the settings button down here. Like I said, mine probably is auto. If I wanted to change that, you switch it over to manual, and I can manually adjust the ISO, the shutter speed, and the exposure value right there. That would be for photos. Or that was for photos, my bad. Video size, this would be if you wanted to change your resolution. Video size right there, mine's 4K 24 frames a second. You could drop that down to like 1080 if you'd prefer. Go down to maybe 60 frames a second, something like that. That would be perfect right there. But like I said, those are kind of options there for what you can do with that. Below that, you had some format options. I like mine MP4, shooting an H.264 codec. If you had like maybe Windows, something like that, you might want .mov. Either way, they both work fine. NTSC-PAL, keep it on NTSC NTSC unless you live in like the UK. I think they use PAL. That's just another kind of formatting system for videos. Not many people really care about that though. I would say leave it on NTSC if you live in the United States. Next is your white balance. I like that to be auto. You can change this manually if you like for different situations. It'll change the look of the color profile of the picture. I like it on auto. I don't really care. I'll let it do the work and let it adjust naturally. You can change the style if you like. I prefer to do this afterwards, so I like to leave this just regular standard neutral. So the next menu down there is the color option, which I like to leave mine at D-Log. It shoots a flatter profile, which gives you more range for color correction afterwards. If you want, you can boost that to like vivid, something like that. There's different options there. Like I said, I like mine D-Log, shooting log format for video. It gives you more range to correct it afterwards. Up to you though. So those are the video settings, and then I missed, there's one more settings here. This one to go over to what's kind of displayed on the screen. So if you want to add the histogram, it'll pop up up there. If you wanted to care about how exposed your composition is, you have your overexposure warning, which is kind of zebra lines. If anyone's familiar with zebra lines, you can turn that on. If it gets pitch white, it'll let you like that. See how it's white in the top corner of the zebras? That means that that's too bright there. That's what that overexposure warning means. That's pure white, which means it's too bright. So that's kind of what those overexposure warning mean. The histogram, we already saw that. The video caption, I leave it off. I don't really care. Grid, you can turn on grid if you want. I don't really care. I like mine just without it. I like my little crosshair there. That's what I like to have. And that would be the next one, which is center point. You can change your center point there, which that would be my little green dot. You can turn that off if you like. A couple different options there. I like the very last one, and then you can change the color. I like it in green. I don't know. Green makes me happy. Final index mode, or what? I missed one. I missed anti-flicker. Anti-flicker would be when the rotors spin, the sun hits the rotors and produces a shadow, and the shadow hits the camera. So what the anti-flicker does is reduces the shadow going into the camera, which makes it flicker, or not flicker is the purpose of anti-flicker. Without it, it would kind of flicker. I don't know. It's noticeable some situations when you're flying into the sun. If not, leave it on auto. If you really care, you can change it if you want, but if you care, you're probably not watching this video. Other than that, file index mode, reset continuous, I'll leave it on reset. That would be for how your files are formatted on your SD card. Next below that is, speak to the devil, format the SD card right there. You'd press that, hit OK, give it a couple seconds, it'll say SD card formatted. You're good to go there. And then reset camera settings if you wanted to wipe everything right back to how it started. Those are all the settings in the camera. Like I said, you covered some quick settings there, and then your video resolution settings, stuff like that, and then some more in-depth settings on there on the side. Next is your little playback button down here, which is also accessible through the button on the right there. There's a little playback button. You can press that and access the exact same information. If not, press it on your phone. But right now, obviously, there's no files on this SD card because it just formatted it. So let's see, we got a bunch covered here. We have the map with the quick access. You have your return to home, your automatic launch. You have your DJI, which takes you back to the regular one. Ready to Go has a bunch of settings for you. There's a whole bunch of information to be accessed up here. Your battery percent is right there. All your video resolution, photo settings are all right up there as well. Your 3 buttons give you a full access to pretty much everything in the drone itself, with the controller, battery, everything like that. So the only thing really left to cover here are these few numbers on the bottom right here. That top left one is distance away from home that you are. So your horizontal distance left to right of how far away that you started. Next is your height. Right now it says we're 0 feet high, which is correct since we're on the table still. But that would tell you how high from home that you started. So that would be your elevation basically. Next is your h.s in miles per hour. That's your horizontal speed. So basically just your overall speed of how fast you're going. Next is your vertical speed, v.s. That's how fast up and down you're going. So if you're gaining elevation, decreasing elevation, that'll either be a positive or negative number. And then your VPS is your vision positioning system, which uses the sonar sensors that I talked about. That would let you know that there is something 0.0 feet away from me because I'm sitting on the table. If you're off the table, that would go up, obviously. That just lets you know if there's an obstacle in the way, right below you. So those are those 5 numbers down there, and then I think we covered pretty much everything else. So the next thing is kind of the legality, I guess, of things, which I did want to touch over because a lot of people are always concerned about drones or getting one for their kid or different situations and what happens and what do you do and everything. So I did kind of want to cover just a quick little overview on what you're supposed to do. I'm not a perfect child either with drones, but there's still definitely rules to follow and definitely ways to be safe and unsafe with them. So I just wanted to cover that real quick. So let's jump over there again and cover that, and then I think we'll be back here to close it off. So let's go there now. See ya. So I know there's a whole bunch of rumors and privacy concerns and different stories and news stories and everything like that going around right now about drones and the safety and privacy and everything, like I said. So I just kind of wanted to make this to at least kind of show you my point of view coming from an owner myself and what I've experienced. I know I'm not a perfect child and follow every single rule that they put out, but I do always try to stay safe and at least do my best to follow the more important rules. The first thing they do, FAA does require a permit that you do have to go get online. It's $5. It lasts 3 years. You go through this little thing, register some information. On FAA's website, there's a little affiliate link you click on. You enter the information, create an account, $5, and they end up giving you a certificate number like this, and a little card just like this. I have this one laminated, but you just print this out. Carry this with you as well, and it has a certificate number like I said. This number does have to be displayed on your drone at all times. You might have noticed that in some of those shots, the top-down shots that I was using of the drone. You might have noticed that there was a little piece of paper with the number on it. That would be my certificate number. You do have to have that displayed at all times. That's if, in case I was doing something illegally and they confiscated my drone, they could find that number on there and track that to who I am and where I live. So that's kind of one grip that the FAA and the government has on me right now, at least in the United States. So that's, like I said, that's kind of the best way to do it. And then I also there's a really cool organization that has a whole bunch of information on all the drones and different concerns and privacy and safety and everything like that. It's called knowbeforeyouFly.org. They also have a map of an interactive drone map to show you where everything and where it's legal and where it's not legal in the United States. I think that it's even worldwide. I've never used it in the worldwide one, but I know for the United States it covers it pretty well. You can go on there, you can mess around with the map and click on different areas and see if it's legal, if it's not legal. All the different restriction types. There are different kinds of restrictions, temporary ones, permanent ones, emergency restrictions, all different things like that. I'd also recommend before you go out flying anywhere, always check that website. Like I said, knowbeforeyouFly.org. Check their interactive map. There's a whole bunch of them else out there, not just knowbeforeyouFly.org. There's a couple interactive maps out there where you can go look and see where it's legal, where it's not legal. I recommend going to that, making sure that it's legal where you're going, and then print that out for proof as well. So I have a whole bag full. Everywhere I go, I always print out a whole bunch of these sheets. So I have one of like the whole Phoenix Valley here, and then all different locations that I've gone to. I have all these sheets printed out to let me know that at least it's legal where I'm going, so that if anyone does ever confront me, I have physical proof here. And then I also have reference to that website, and I have my permit. So I have my back pretty well covered most of the time where I'm going. So I usually carry these around with my permit and my ID. And if you do that, most of the time you're set. Most people won't give you any crap over it. And a lot of times, like I said, there's a whole bunch of these rumors and everything about people, the different ways to misuse them and everything. From what I've experienced, 95% of the time, people are more excited in them than they are scared of them, really. I've had one person in my entire 6 months or whatever that has been like, get that away from me kind of thing. And all the rest have been really cool, and they're always interested in them and want to know about them and fly them, and it's always kind of a like tourist attraction pulling up to somewhere. I try to stay away from people when I use them, just as I don't really like having the attention brought to me, because they are kind of noisy and obnoxious. Some people like them, and I don't know, I just don't want to get into that drama right now. So I try to stay secluded, but if I'm not, if I'm in kind of a semi-public environment and I just fire one up, there's always a bunch of people that usually look or even get interested in them, and a lot of times it's more positive feedback than negative. And I think that's probably like the most misinterpreted kind of stat that there is. A lot of people always think that they're dangerous and then they're like a terrorist attack, something crazy that people just get out of nowhere. And almost always people are happy about them and interested in them and want to know more about them. And that's why I love sharing all these stories about different ways that you can learn and do different things and different uses for them. And it's so cool. And I think the community as a whole has so much room for potential. Hopefully in good ways. It obviously does have potential in negative ways, and there's a lot of room to be stripped from that potential as well. So I just hope that that's what I try to do here, is just educate people on the uses for them and the good ways that they can be used and interpreted, and the amazing things that you can get out of them. They can definitely change people's lives and perspectives and enhance so much good for people. So I just want to make this kind of show you guys what I go through. Like I said, that's kind of know before you fly, biggest reference there. And then, like I said, before you fly them, you do have to register them through the FAA. I'll show you the link. I'll lift all that down below. And then every once in a while, you will get a knowledge quiz on the DJI GO app. It happens every once in a while. You're supposed to like answer a few questions, something like that. That's kind of the only last restriction, I guess, for safety with them. But other than that, like I said, FAA permit, there's sometimes a knowledge quiz on DJI GO. And then know before you fly is probably the best reference there is out there. They're an affiliate with FAA. They have a whole bunch of information, like I said. Check the links down below if you're interested in all those. So that's kind of the legality of everything, like I said. Just wanted to cover that, get that off my head. I know there's probably going to be a few haters out there. They're just like, critique me on everything, but I don't really care. So next we're diving into frequently asked questions, and that's pretty much going to sum it up. So let's go over there and answer those, and then we will wrap this thing up, guys. So next are some frequently asked questions. I have a stack of note cards here that I probably get asked the most often, or that I found online, or people just wondering about things. So I'm going to go through these real quick and just kind of answer them. If you're skipping to this part of the video, this will help you out a little bit, just some quick knowledge without watching all that other boring stuff. So first off, attaching your own camera. No, you cannot attach your own GoPro camera. First of all, why? This camera is way better. But no. You can maybe tape it or something to the top, looking straight up, or you can maybe hang it to the bottom using like string or something, but no. Just no. Charging both at once. Charging them / charging both at once. Because the charger that it comes with is a charger for the battery and the controller both in one, with a prong for the battery and a prong for the controller. Yes, you can charge them both at once. On DJI's website, they don't recommend that, probably because of the voltage kind of thing. Don't want to overvolt anything. But that's how they charge, and the battery time, it's about an hour for charging pretty much both of them. I think the controller takes about an hour or two if it's totally dead. I don't usually let the controller get totally dead. I usually charge it when it's at like 80% or something stupid, but the batteries take about an hour. If you use them all the way down to about 10%, it takes about an hour to recharge them, and then they're done in like 15 minutes again. So not the most efficient kind of thing, but it works out well. Distance to fly. So they fly about a mile. I've gotten it about a mile. I think on their website they advertise something crazy, like 2 or 3 miles or something crazy. It's a mile. I've gotten it until about 5,000 feet, and then it started to, first thing that you'll notice is like the transmission signal of it starts to get like broken down or lower quality. That's usually the first sign. And then the transmission signal will totally disconnect, and then at that point is when I usually turn around. But the controller is still connected, so I guess if you wanted to, you could fly further, but you'd be blind. You wouldn't be able to see it on the screen at all. It'd just be the controller talking to it, which if you want to, go for it, but a mile. Battery time for it, I pretty much just explained that. It's about 20 to 30 minutes, or my bad, not 20 to 30, 15 to 20 minutes depending on the wind as well. If it's really strong winds, you're going against the wind the entire time, it'll cut it down to like 10 minutes, seriously. And if you have a really nice day, perfect conditions, you can get it up to about, I think I've done it to like 20 minutes once or twice. They say like 23 minutes, I say 20 kind of mats, but it's not too bad. And then it takes, like I said, about an hour to recharge. Are any of the other parts or batteries interchangeable? Because I have some people that say, you know, I had a Phantom 2 or something, well it worked with this one. Most of the time, no. The batteries are not interchangeable. Same with the Phantom 4. So if you maybe downgrading to this one or want a future upgrade to the DJI 4, you cannot use the DJI 3 batteries with the 4. Inner DJI 3, they are compatible. So the Phantom 3 Standard, Professional, Advanced, SE, and 4K, those are completely interchangeable, all those. But once you get out of the Phantom 3 into the 4.3 Inspire, or not 4.3, 4.2 Inspire, any of those are not interchangeable. Between the rotors might be the only thing, the propellers I mean. They might be the only thing that are interchangeable, but batteries, parts, camera, anything like that are not. Landing and launching. How do you land and launch it? Launching it, first of all, to start it up is the 2 buttons. They go push them in. That'll start the rotors and get them running. I can kind of show that here, and then after that, it'll sit there at a constant idle, and then it's throttle up and it'll go up, and from there it's pretty easy to fly. Launching it, I prefer to launch it from the ground. That's DJI wants you to launch it from the ground as well. I have launched it by hand, and it's the scariest thing in the world because you have to, especially when you're alone doing it, if not, have a person do it for you because it really helps out a lot. But you can launch it by hand. It doesn't really mess anything up at all. You can just hold it by the bottom under the 2 stands and then just throttle up all the way, and right when you feel it pull, just let go. And it's seriously the scariest feeling in the world, just letting go like that. But it's worked out well pretty good amount of times. And then landing it, kind of similar. I'm way more comfortable landing it than I am taking it off, at least by hand. I prefer to actually land it by hand, not land it on a surface. A lot of times when you land it on a surface, especially in like sand or rock, it'll get into the rotors. And if sometimes the rotors get like a sand in them, and you can feel them. When you spin it, you'll hear it, just the grittiness. And I believe that's probably because I was landing and flying it in dirt and sand and everything like that. So I try to keep it away from the ground as much as possible. I usually like landing it by hand, taking it off by like either pure concrete where there's no like fine particles, or like on top of my truck, or in the back of my truck, or on either by hand, worst case scenario. But on a big rock even, sometimes you can find a big rock. Try to keep it away from the dust as much as possible for obvious reasons. But landing it's a lot easier to do it by hand. You just keep coming down, hold down on the throttle, grab it with one hand by the little L by the feet, and then just hold it all the way off and it'll turn off just like that. You can also land it if you like. I honestly think landing it by hand is a lot safer and easier. I've never had a problem with that. So that's one, crashing them, in all caps, crashing them. People always ask us all the time, are they safe? Do they ever crash? Anytime they crash, it's probably your fault. Sorry, but they're pretty well made and they're made not to crash. The only real reasons to why they would ever crash, there's mainly 2, they're not even popular ones, but 2 ways that they can. One that's you can't control at all would be if the battery completely fails, like if the battery like either blows up or it becomes disconnected. That's the only thing, because they do have the return home feature, so that if the remote or controller gets disconnected, or I mean your phone or the controller gets disconnected, it'll automatically return to home. But if the battery gets disconnected, it obviously doesn't have power. So that's one of the only ways that it can happen that's not your fault. If the battery somehow either gets unplugged, which I don't see that ever happening because it's in there pretty tight and it's always hard to take out. That'd be probably the only way, or if something malfunctions with the wiring in it after a couple of years, something like that. I've only heard rumors of that, never ever seen like a video or any actual real story of it. That'd be the one way. The other way that's definitely way more common is if you physically run it into something. Either you're doing a really cool shot of trees and you want to get a cool shot of the trees really close to the drone, you get too close, something like that, it clips it. That's probably one of the easiest ways. Another one kind of common that people kind of forget about sometimes, remember back in if you actually watch the whole thing, back when we were doing the settings, I went into the return to home altitude and I said how important that was. That's because this helps with crashing. So that return to home altitude is how high the drone will go before returning to home. So once it disconnects, wherever it's at, it will go to that return to home altitude and then it will go home in a straight line from there. So that's why I said that you want that return to home altitude to be higher than anything you're flying around. So if that was set to the lowest one, which is like 20 meters, so less than 100 feet, what would happen is it would disconnect, it would go up 100 feet, and it would come to home. If there's something in the way within that 100 feet, it runs right into it. The biggest thing with this is if you're flying up and over something, I've heard this happen all the time, seen videos of it happen, where you're flying over a church or a bridge or something like that. So you set your return to home to something too low. Like I said, you always want to make it higher. You set it too low, you go up something, get a really cool shot going up, you go over it, you go down the other side, really cool shot, everything like that. Once you get to the other side, there's something in the way, so it disconnects. So it can't talk through concrete or metal like that pretty easily. So it'll disconnect once it's on the other side. Then return to home is 20 meters, something like that. It goes up 20 meters, not high enough, comes straight at you, hits whatever's in the way. That's kind of the most common way to crash it. Like I said, most of the time it is your fault. So just be safe with it, be knowledgeable. It's pretty easy to avoid. I haven't really crashed them that much. I don't know. It's all self-control. How loud are they? How noisy are they? That's kind of another important one, I guess, because if you're trying to use them maybe for like wildlife, or you don't want to, if you're in a populated environment, something like that, they are pretty decently loud. You can hear them from probably half a mile away. Anything further than that, they just become, you don't really hear them, but they're pretty loud. You can hear them from, like I said, about half a mile away. They'll sound like bees, like the group of bees, just with a solid buzz. And then once they get closer, they're pretty loud. You're not going to do it silently. There's no way you're going to like surprise someone with them. They're substantially, some of the newer ones are a little bit quieter, like the Mavic, some of the smaller ones that have smaller propellers, obviously. But most of the full-size ones, Phantom 3, Phantom 4, they're all pretty the same noise level, and they're not quiet at all. You can definitely hear them. Can you fly them at night? Legally, yes. It'll work, yes. I've never really found a reason to fly them at night. I've never been in a place that's bright enough to fly them. A lot of times the video quality will be terrible because it's too dark. But if you're in like a populated city with a bunch of city lights and stuff, it is actually pretty cool at night. It's totally legal. Go for it. It'll work just fine. That's why it has lights on it as well, so you can tell which direction's front. It's pretty safe. I don't see anything wrong with flying it at night. It would just depend on if you really have a production value in flying it at night. If there's something to really shoot. If there is, go for it. Totally cool. Send me the videos even. How does it handle wind? I think it's rated for 30 miles an hour wind, which is actually pretty substantial. I've flown it in like 15 miles an hour, and it was the scariest thing ever as well. But I think it's rated. It'll handle it pretty well. The GPS won't be as efficient when locking it, so it'll kind of hover and sway to adjust for the wind, obviously. But it'll definitely handle pretty good wind. It's surprising with that. And then lastly is just some troubleshooting. Just if anything ever happens, if you skip to this part, this is some quick little stuff that I usually do a lot of times that I've had problems with that I would recommend doing. My battery died, but I'm back. So last one, we're on the final part here. It's troubleshooting. So if you ever have anything problems or anything that's going wrong with that and you can't figure out what it is, these are kind of my 4 go-to kind of steps that I do in increasing complicationness, whatever. So the first thing I would say to do, if something's not working, if it's not displaying, if it's not connected, something like that, just restart everything. Kind of the basic, did you turn it off and back on kind of thing. Sometimes that actually does work. It straightens itself right back out. So I would say turn off the drone, unplug the battery even, plug it back in. Disconnect the controller, turn it off, disconnect your phone, plug it back in, turn it on, all that basic stuff. And sometimes that actually does work. It doesn't make any sense at all, but try it. Do that first. It's not too hard at all. Next thing I would say is the linking remote controller. This actually is probably the most helpful for me, at least. A lot of times it'll be connected, it'll say it's connected, but there's no transmission signal. So you know it works, you can control everything, but you just can't see it. Which that's kind of a problem when you need to do stuff like that. So that's the thing. Usually for this problem, link the remote controller. So go into the top right little dot setting, whatever, drop down, controller settings, link in remote controller, click it. It'll give you a timer. You go onto the drone where the light and the button is on the side of it. You press the button, you let go of it. It'll say link or remote controller linked, something like that. That's usually the easiest thing to do, and it usually restores the transmission signal just like that, real quick. That's usually the most helpful for me. If that doesn't work, I start to get a little nervous. Then what I would do is restart my phone. Sometimes it is actually my phone's fault, I don't know why. So unplug everything, disconnect everything again, and then now restart your phone too. Sometimes it is like the operating system or something, there's some glitch in the system like that, and that's worked a couple times too. So restart your phone. It might take a little bit longer than some of the others, but sometimes it's worth it. Turn it back on, plug in everything again, connect everything again, and sometimes that actually does work as well. And then the absolute worst case scenario, if all that didn't work, you're kind of stuck and it's probably the app's fault. So what I usually do is re-download the app, and it's like the most risky thing ever, especially if you're on a location that doesn't have a proper cell connection or Wi-Fi. A lot of times, knowing how big the DJI GO app is, a lot of times you can't download it off cellular. It has to require a Wi-Fi network, but that usually does fix the problem. But it's just tough when you're out in the middle of nowhere, you don't have a cell connection, none of this is working. A lot of times that's what you have to do is re-download the app, which I've done that a couple times where you're out there You need it to work. You realize that this is the worst case scenario. You uninstall the app, and now you can't download it because you don't have a strong enough cellular connection. That's happened to me a couple times, and you're kind of screwed. So I would say try to stay away from that. Maybe do everything again twice, something like that. But then absolute worst case scenario, try re-downloading the app. That usually helps out, and then you kind of start with like a fresh slate almost. That'd be kind of the. And then other than that, there are actually some like little like cheats that you can do. Look up like YouTube troubleshooting, something like that. There's like little weird programming things to redo things, and I had to do like one time. It's kind of really complicated. I don't remember any of it, but you have to like push and hold something for 10 seconds and then push something, and I don't know, it gets way complicated, but that actually sometimes works too. It helps with like linking the remote controller. I just don't remember it by heart, so I only look that up when I absolutely have to, but I've never really needed that. Just needed it once. So those are my kind of 4 ones. Like I said, linking the remote controller is probably the most helpful. Memorize that one. It's not too hard at all. Carry around with a toothpick or something. And then restart everything. That usually honestly works well. And then restart your phone sometimes. That'd be my go-to 3. And then re-download the app if you absolutely have to. Those are kind of my kind of troubleshooting guide. We've gotten through all the frequently asked questions. All that's really left is a final verdict and maybe a little comparison to other drones out there. So let's get in that, and then we're pretty much done here, folks. Let's go. So this is just kind of like the final verdict, a final kind of statement of what I think, in my opinion, and different kind of advice I might have to other people. I did do a quick little search on what other drones are out there and the prices point on those and everything like that. I'm a pretty big DJI fan. I swear by DJI. They have a great company, they have great customer service and a great product, and I haven't had a single problem with them. So I'm a big fan of the DJI brand. I know the GoPro Karma is another cool option that a lot of people always weigh in. And if you know me at all, I do have 2 GoPros myself, and I love GoPro just as much as DJI. I just think for my situation, I wanted a drone to be just a drone. I already have plenty of other cameras and other different kind of cool gadgets like that, so I didn't really need the GoPro, another GoPro I mean. So I wanted my drone shots to be the best as possible. That's why I chose the DJI Phantom. But the GoPro Karma is really cool, really versatile. There's definitely a couple more options out there. There's a couple kind of knockoff brands, I guess. I think DJI and GoPro have the best products in the drone game. I think DJI is better than GoPro. And then even within DJI, there's so many options as well. I mean, you have starting at like the Phantom 3 Standard is a perfect entry-level drone. That would be kind of my bare minimum to start at. If you're just getting into this, you're like maybe a parent, someone young that doesn't have, you're tight on money, something like that. Just want to get in and you think they're so cool and you want to see all these videos and stuff like that. I would say Phantom 3 Standard, probably one of the hands-down best investments you could get. That was kind of what I was going to get for a while. They start, I think they're down to like 500 bucks, something like that right now, which is a really good deal for how good of quality they're made. They have that DJI quality with a great software and incredible hardware, backed with DJI's customer service. They're pretty good drones to start out with. That would be kind of my bare minimum, like I said. And then you have the Phantom 3 Advanced, you have the Phantom 3 4K, the Phantom 3 SE, and then the Phantom 3 Professional, which is the one I have. I don't think any of those middle ones are kind of worth it. I think if you're going to take the step up from the Phantom 3 Standard, jump to my Phantom 3 Professional. You get a little bit better with the operating system, the controller's better, you get 4K on it, you get a little bit better of the specs on the inside as well. That would be my jump. I don't really see a reason to get anything in the middle unless you find a great deal on them. And then above mine you have the Phantom 4, you have the Mavic, which is a great little option. I'd love to have a Mavic. Those, I would take those hands down than a Phantom 3 Professional, just for how compact they are. They fit my travel style really well. Mavic is way better. Phantom 4s are pretty cool. I think I just saw a sale on Phantom 4s. I think they've came down quite a bit. Those are another good investment. But I would say if you're looking low-end drones, Phantom 3 Standard, that's a perfect drone to start out with. You cannot go wrong with it. I would say my Phantom 3 Professional would be a great mid-level one. You get 4K video, you get tons of cool softwares and modes and different things like that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And then if you really wanted to go all out, Mavic, if you're into traveling and adventure and stuff, since it's so small and does such amazing work still. And then if you really wanted to, you can go all out and go up to the Phantom 4, the Phantom 4 Professional, something like that if you really wanted more cinematic quality. And if you're higher than that, you're probably not watching this video, but they make an Inspire. Go check out the Inspire. But those are kind of just like the ladders, I guess, stepping stones of the drone game. I got mine, like I said in the very beginning, I got mine about 6 months ago and I got it used. I met a guy on Craigslist, had him on sale. He had a couple drones and he was getting rid of this one to upgrade to the next one. Like I said though, these are about $750 new and each battery is about 100 bucks. I have 2 extra batteries, so I have 3 batteries in the drone itself, which would run about close to 1,000 bucks right now. And I got it off of him for 750 bucks. It was all after graduation. I didn't even have a job yet. I didn't have much technology. All I had was a camera and my 2 GoPros. I didn't have a computer. Didn't have one of my nice phones. I didn't really have any of this stuff. And I had all this graduation money that I wanted to spend. And as a kid, or not even as a kid, drones have only been around for me for like 5 years that I know of, you know. But I always wanted a drone. I always wanted all this cool tech stuff. I never had the money for it. Never really had the urge to use it, anything like that. It was just cool to see. And after I got that kind of chunk of money, I knew I was gonna spend it. Obviously, like what am I gonna do? But I just kind of thought, like, what do I want right now, and what would benefit me the most? A computer was up there. I really wanted a computer, and I'm lucky enough to have a MacBook Pro now, and I love it dearly. But I wanted a drone. I looked into them, and I was thinking about the Phantom 3 Standard, like I said, and it's a go-to drone. It'd be perfect for entry level. You know, nothing wrong with it at all. I looked into that. I was thinking, you know, I could get that. Did an upgrade battery. I mean, there's some combos out there that exist that are really good deals as well. Throw some extra goodies in there as well. So I decided to look on Craigslist to see if there was like any good steals, something like that, to get maybe a higher level one for a cheaper price, and that's exactly what I found. Met a really cool, nice guy on Craigslist. They had a Phantom 3 Professional, 2 batteries. It didn't have much use in it. He used it commercially for a little bit. I asked him up. He had it listed for like $850, and I was like, that's too much money, but it was a pretty good deal too. So I did get it down to $750, and I was like, it was really cutting it close on cash. You know, I had to get it all cash. But I ended up deciding that that's what I want to do, because it would benefit me the most down the road, and it would last the longest, and it's the best product. And I decided to go for it. Got it, and it's been nothing but perfect for me so far. I've had nothing but little tiny minor errors like I showed you in the troubleshooting stuff. I mean, it's fixed. I haven't had a single problem. Haven't crashed it. Never really had any major problems at all with it. So that's what I would say. If you could though, that'd be kind of my recommendation. Phantom 3 Standard is a great entry level. If you want to get even cheaper than that, Phantom 3 Standard used is what I would say. And then other brands, they're fine, but I just swear by DJI. I'm totally biased with them. That's what I would say. And if you wanted to do kind of what I did, get a higher level drone, maybe used if you can find a good deal. Kind of persuade some people here and there about, you know, you're a good kid, you're gonna use it, you know, put it to use, stuff like that. That's kind of what I threw in there. I think that's a great way to go. I think it'll help you out down the line. There's tons of uses for them nowadays, and that's kind of what I love about them. You can be so creative with them, and so many people use them, and they're so still evolving, you know. And that's kind of my biggest outlook on them right now. So whoever you are, go for it. Follow your dreams, whatever you're gonna do. Just always be safe with them, obviously, and follow the rules. But other than that, it's all yours. The world is for the taking right now before they restrict them, because I know there's probably going to be a huge restriction soon. But until then, enjoy it. Do amazing things with them. And that's kind of my final words here. So I've covered a lot. I know there's been a lot of information covered and a lot of numbers thrown out and everything like that. Hope you enjoyed it though. Hope you drew something from this video. Hope this helps you out if you're making a decision right now, trying to crunch numbers, everything like that. Hopefully I helped. Let me know though what you want to see next, anything like that. This is kind of a passion for me, I guess, but especially being drones, that it's gotten so much part of my lifestyle with cameras and computers and everything. And it's really kind of cool to be able to talk about them and have them and surround yourself with all this cool stuff. So I am pretty thankful for that. But thank you guys for watching as well. Pretty thankful for all you guys for watching all these and helping out and everything like that. So thanks again. Let me know if there's anything else you want to see, any kind of questions. If you ever run into troubleshooting and something like that, just let me know. I can try to get it out, see if I have any personal experience as well. But other than that, I'll catch you guys next time. And stay out there, stay safe, stay flying, guys. I'll see you guys later.